Drago,
What's up, baby?
how are you?
I am great, kind sir.
Yeah, you just got off a flight?
I did. I missed the memo to wear a suit and tie today. My bad.
I
Don't
know.
judge me.
Me and Dave are making you look bad.
You guys
But
look
you got
great.
you got what t-shirt you got on today?
I got like an old school NASCAR t-shirt on, man.
I like it. I'm right in NASCAR country. Half those guys live right around me. All the race
Oh,
teams, all the drivers live like within 3 block vicinity of me.
are you the mortgage guy for the NASCAR guys?
I've helped a couple of
Goodbye.
them. Yeah, I
That's
helped
cool.
more of the race teams, but yeah, a couple of them live like right next door to me, so I hear about NASCAR all the time.
Yeah, that's bitching.
They use all these terms, and I have no idea what they're talking about, and I don't really care. So, we are excited to have David back on today. We are at episode 44. We're calling today Healing Las Vegas. There's a fight against substance abuse. What's up, David?
Not much. Good to be here, Chad and
Good.
Jeff.
Yeah,
Hey, I
man.
want to
Thanks for coming on.
I want to talk about a conversation I had right before I came on here, just to be vulnerable and get people to open up and to get those that have a loved one, a family member, a friend struggling with addiction. So I just had this beautiful conversation with a friend, somebody I've known for probably about 8 to 10 years. And I had to come clean with something to him, and I wanted to come clean with you guys because I think it's so important what we talk about. And I've lived in regret, and I haven't talked about it on this podcast. But I lost my sister to addiction, and I think back to the regret I have in my life is that I didn't do anything about it. I knew it was going on. She was using meth, and I knew it was a problem. She had confided with me. She knew I had went through my struggles, and sought treatment. And just because she didn't do it my way and didn't do it the way I thought was appropriate and the way that worked for me, I don't want to say I turned my back on her, but I pushed very hard on her to do it the way I did it because, hey, that worked for me and that should work for everybody. And I think David will tell you today that's not the case. And, I live with regret every day that I didn't do more about it and that I ruled with an iron fist about it and said, you got to do this, this, and that for me to talk to you. And like had this really ugly and aggressive intervention with her, and it obviously did not work. And I got to correct that a little bit today with a friend. I got to say this is what didn't work. I would advise you to take a soft approach, and he will go get treatment when he is ready. But here are some of the things that you could say, and here are some of the ways you could support him. So I just kind of wanted to start off with that because I think there's so many people that listen, Dave and Drago, and they don't know what to do when they have somebody or know someone that's struggling. It's kind of like I see a lot of people push that person away because they don't know how to deal with it themselves. So maybe you can touch on that, David, and we can start there, and then
Well,
you
what
can
was your
get in.
sister's name? I'd like to know your sister's name.
Her name was Dawn.
Dawn.
Yep. So this was back in 2016. So about good 5, 6 years after I had stopped my addictions and got the help that I needed, and had moved on from that life and those drugs. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you because it literally just came out about an hour ago in this conversation that I had with somebody, and it was really the first
Oh,
time I admitted to myself that I could have done more, and the approach I took did not work.
well, I'm sorry for your loss. Although I will tell you that, um, your Dawn's recovery wasn't your job. That was actually Dawn's job.
That's right.
Your recovery is your job.
That's right.
Now, what I'll tell you is I heard you talk about an intervention, and as you know, I've done hundreds of interventions, including several on A&E's show Intervention, where I was the guest interventionist who went out and an intervention is arresting a substance use disorder cycle and getting someone into treatment. That's what it is. So if somebody says we had an intervention and I told my loved one what I think of them, and then we all left, That's not an intervention. That's a bitch session. An intervention is stopping a cycle of drug use and getting a person into treatment. Now, getting a person into treatment's tricky. And if Dawn wasn't ready to go or wasn't willing to go, you know, the only thing the intervention should have been done is facilitating that, maybe calling, arranging a bed, having transportation, you know, arranging childcare or take care of the dog, what have you, you know, helping arrange those details. But if you have a person, anybody who has a substance use disorder, which has become severe enough to warrant an intervention, you know, the only thing that we should do is get them into treatment. Now, this leads me to enabling, and I love talking about enabling because I got a hardcore perspective on enabling too. And that is that if you give your sister money while she's using, you're enabling her.
Yeah.
If you let her stay in your house, you're enabling her. If you give her the keys to your car, if she tells you she's cold and you give her a sweater, if she tells you she's hungry and you give her a bowl of soup, anything you do to help a person in active addiction is enabling. The only thing you should be doing for a person who's in active addiction is get them into treatment so we could, if they need physiological help or pharmacological help to stop, you know, they could get that. And then if they need the longer term psychological treatment, they could get the tools and the skills that they need to become, you know, to get their substance use disorder, you know, and get it at bay. So we talked about interventions. We talked about enabling. You also mentioned meth. And, you know, to me, Jeff asked me about some of the trends. And what's very interesting and doesn't get a lot of press is that in Nevada, we had about 620 overdose deaths last year. And the good news is that nationwide, it's actually trending down a little bit. For the first year, overdoses are dipping a little. Now we're still close to 100,000 a year. So it's crazy. There's way too many. This is a national epidemic or crisis, but good news, it's getting slightly better. What's interesting is that the methamphetamine overdoses are just below the fentanyl overdoses. They're very close.
Oh, interesting.
And while the fentanyl overdoses are like slowing the heart and lungs to the point of, you know, existence ceases, meth is more, you know, having you go into cardiac arrest. So they're
That's what happened.
Yeah, they're total different directions. But the methamphetamine coming out of Mexico right now, it's absolutely dangerous. And it's causing almost as many overdose deaths as fentanyl.
Is there anything preventative? I know, like with fentanyl and Narcan, like there's a lot more preventative medicine for people. Is there anything for meth?
Not for end users to use. If you go into the ER and you're going to cardiac arrest, they do have some medications that they will use, but there's nothing for the layman. For folks like us, if somebody has an opioid use disorder, we may be given Narcan. And I have a little trainer, the Narcan, you open it up, it's a little tester like that. And if a person's laying down and maybe barely breathing or not breathing, we take this, we put it in their nose and then administer the shot of Narcan nasally. Sometimes they have a little injector and then they use a needle and you inject a needle often into the thigh or perhaps the arm. And it's generally an inert drug. Before I began to do this, I would obviously call 911, get them on speakerphone, tell them I have a person who's unconscious or I believe is overdosed, and then I would take them through this Narcan process. You know, if they are going into cardiac arrest, unfortunately, methamphetamine, the answer is just dial 911.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay, man. And are we seeing in Vegas a spike in fentanyl and xylazine?
Xylazine hit Las Vegas, and this is crazy. It hit Vegas 10 months ago. You know, I've been testing all our clients for xylazine for 2 years. As soon as I heard about it, I just started testing everybody. And we were testing, and I start getting my first pop positives in May. Then we started getting more over the summer. It hasn't like spiked, but I'm picking up 2-3%, often of xylazine and fentanyl, as a poly substance. One of the challenges of xylazine is it doesn't respond to Narcan. So if somebody's overdosed on xylazine, the only answer is to get them to the hospital, much like methamphetamine use.
Can you describe what xylazine is?
Yeah, it's a new tranquilizer drug that's on the market that, as I said, is usually mixed with fentanyl. But particularly in the East, maybe closer to you, Chad, we're seeing xylazine isolated. We're just seeing it as a kind of a polysubstance issue.
Interesting.
So what does somebody do that knows this is an issue, and how do you administer the intervention? So if someone were to reach out to you, Dave, and say, hey, I have this person struggling and I want to do an intervention, give us some steps that they would go through, that would be a best practice to make this successful and hopefully get their loved one the treatment that they need.
That is my favorite question. Thank you so much. Because, I think there's about 48 million Americans with substance use disorder right now.
Yeah.
So it's at 48.5. It's a giant number. A lot of us have loved ones with a substance use disorder. And as you know, they're trying their best to hide it from us. And if we know about it, it means they're doing a terrible job. So
that's exactly what I told this guy today. I said, hey, remember with your brother, remember that if he's hiding the use, it's not him lying, it's not your brother lying, it's the addiction and the drugs that does the lying.
Yeah. And often I have people who say, Dave, and I get calls all the time because I am an interventionist and I do paid interventions. You get a link on my website if you want to order one. But usually what I say is, what I would do is, before you engage an interventionist, who's the person who's most trusted and closest to the person? And why doesn't, instead of doing a Johnson method, mom and grandma cry and read letters, why don't you do just what all of us would want? Have our dear friend come up to us, sit down in a private place and say, Chad, you've gone too far. We're really concerned. I'm really concerned. I would like to help you get treatment. Will you let me help you? And instead of dealing with like a lot of shame or a social or familial situation, I always prefer just a caring, one-on-one intervention first with a person who's trusted. Because
did you call that the Johnson method? The Johnson, because that's when I had an interview. Well, I had it. You said it was a bitch session, so I just followed what was. There wasn't a plan to go into recovery. That was like where we're going. But I did the Johnson method, where everybody got together and they all read letters of how I was hurting them, and I took that as they were attacking me.
Right, and that the Johnson method is the letters.
Yeah,
where you get the, and there's usually a pre-intervention where they all get together first without the addict. They prepare, they write the letters, and then the interventionist gets the person in the room, often tries to like get their keys or secure their transportation, maybe get some goons at the door, whatever the case is. And then the family reads letters trying to connect and let them know that this is a crisis, even if they can't see it. With the point at the end is, will you go to treatment right now? And there should be, if you do a Johnson method intervention, there should be transportation ready and a bed ready.
Yeah, for you to
transport that person to treatment. And I've done it many times that it was successful. Sometimes, I was shocked. I mean, I did one intervention where I waited with a family outside of the Clark County Detention Center. And the girl got out of jail and she saw me and the family and she looked sideways. She was looking to run, but her sister ran up and hugged her, and she kind of like reluctantly walked over to the circle with her sister because it was just the polite thing to do. And then before anybody could say anything, I said, Mom, do you have something to say? And then Mom went into it, and it was like, it would be rude for her to cut her off. So she just kind of listened. And then all of a sudden we were like synced emotionally. And then she went for this ride. And at the end, everybody paused. There was a little crying, and it came to me, and I was like, will you get into this van right now and accept this offer of love? And she was like, if I could have a cigarette. I was like, great. I'd have a cigarette, get in the van. And, you know, to me, she recently took 2 years clean.
Awesome.
So that was a successful intervention.
Amen to
No,
that.
it was really dicey.
Wow.
I feel like most interventions are pretty dicey.
Yeah, you know, I've been surprised how often people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Where we go in to do the intervention, and they're like, "Thank God, what took you so long? Can I please stop this madness?" You know, or how? Like, great, come with me. And then often, you know, nowadays they talk about lived experience. Talking to somebody who has lived experience and be like, you know, non-judgmental. I get it. I'm with you. I've been there. This is me. Come with me. Do what I do, and we got this. Yeah, unfortunately, the ones we hear about are the 10 or 15% that blow up and go sideways.
Yeah. What do you think has led, have you seen a common theme in the interventions that don't work? And I know it's always with the addict and their choice to wanting to get help, but has there been anything that you've seen like, hey, definitely don't do this and don't engage them this way?
You know, I'm going to disagree with you.
That's good.
I'm not successful, not because of the addict. I'm usually not successful because of a weak link in the family who's like,
wow, really?
You could still live with me. Or
the enabler.
The enabler, right. And it's like, and it's very subtle, but you know, it's a flash of the eyes. It's usually the family not being unified that this is it. So it's, you know, it's mom or dad, you know, almost most often, you know, we're doing the intervention. We're like, well, I just want you to know, no matter what, you're my son and I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah. Blows the whole thing up, right? So it's the weak link of enablement, right? So listen to that. I mean, be clear. If you're enabling the addict, and you think it's out of love, it's actually the opposite.
You're killing them. Yeah, no, it's literally killing them. And nowadays, with meth or opioid overdoses, you're literally killing them because, you know, for substance use disorders, that's 90% of our addiction. Those two drugs.
And that's the truth with my sister. Like, it wasn't intentional, but my mom was enabling her by giving her money that she thought was to pay her rent. But, you know, addictions and drug abuse make us liars. And that's what the money was going for. And I found that out after her passing. Right. So, yeah, the enablement. And I love what you said, as you have to cut them off on almost all things and not enable.
Not almost.
All things.
All things. Anything you do to a person in active addiction to help them is enabling them. Anything. A warm bowl of soup, I don't care if they're cold or they're hungry.
Got it. So what I was going to say more so like, cause like I would say like my mom and my grandparent was my enabler, but I was manipulating them to get what I wanted because I knew how to get them. So were they really enabling me even though I was manipulating them to give them what I needed?
That's a great point, Jeff. You're right. I think part of it is I get so angry when I get a weak link in a family and I see him giving them the out. But you're right. It's certainly a system dynamic. And that person, you know, whether they choose to look extra pathetic or, you know, I knew you always loved sister more than me, whatever, you know, BS they end up playing, you know, to play at those, whether it's purse strings or heartstrings, you know, to be able to connect. And then the issue is I don't blame the addict. You know, the addict's just trying to get what they need.
Right.
You know, 100%. I understand that 100%.
Yeah. I was just trying to get well, not get sick. So you didn't know that I was an addict. So what
Amazing. I mean, that is so good. Go ahead, Drago.
I was gonna say, so with parents out there, because I feel like the tough love type stuff, do it this way, my way or the highway, because I experienced that as well. Like, what would be some resources, Dave, that like you could give to our audience that maybe our parents or are in a position where they have an addict and they're just they want the addict to do it their way. Is that the right way to do it? Is there some resources that they could reach out and learn? I know, like for my mom did, uh, what is it? It's Narnon.
Naranon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
or
she did that. She
Al-Anon.
did that after she knew I was an addict, so that wasn't something she was doing before. Um,
It's better if they do it before. If I get a parent, and I had one, this is yesterday. She's like, "Oh, my son's coming out of jail and I want to get him into treatment right away. Can we?" And I was like, "Absolutely. Are you willing to do two things? Are you willing to get the drugs and alcohol out of the house before your kid gets there? And are you willing to go to an Al-Anon meeting before your kid gets there?" And then to me, that's a good way to judge how willing, and how serious they are.
for sure.
Because if the mom's like, "Oh, not my Jack Daniels," it certainly lets me know. I mean, you're calling me for desperate help for your child, and I'm asking you to get some of these things out of your house. If that's a problem, same thing. Are you willing to go to a couple Al-Anon meetings? If the parent's willing to do that, that's moving them from the contemplation stage to the action stage. So they're doing. And what's fascinating is, whether the mom or the loved one shares at the meeting or whether they just listen and start realizing, one, they're not alone. Two, the patterns are very similar, and each of us think that they're terribly unique, what's going on, but the patterns are very similar. And you could hear this. I happen to, not only am I a drug addict, not only am I an alcoholic, but I'm also a codependent. So I had to go to Al-Anons extensively, particularly my second and third year of recovery, because I found I got clean, and I, immediately fell in love with people who were using, and I didn't want to see it. What do we say? Do you know what the mating call of the codependent is?
No.
Oh,
That's funny.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Well, check it out because you mentioned parents and enablement. And I love what David said. 48.5 million Americans in active addiction. There are 340 million people in our country. That means almost a 15% likelihood that your child will be in active addiction. So everybody thinks they're immune to this epidemic, this disease, this just terrible circumstance that keeps getting worse in our country, right? There's new synthetics, there's new drugs, there's prescriptions now, there's fentanyl, right? Xylocam, did I say that right?
xylazine.
Xylazine, thank you.
What's interesting is, you've probably heard about California sober. There's people who, hey, I don't do heroin and I don't drink, but I smoke some weed. That's California sober. I'm now hearing more and more about Berlin sober. And Berlin sober is you don't drink alcohol, you don't use drugs, but you get ketamine or you do ketamine. And ketamine is certainly, on the uptick.
Yeah.
And while ketamine, I find anecdotally effective to address major depressive disorder.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't think any substance use professional would prescribe ketamine to a person with a substance use disorder.
Right.
We heard about Matthew Perry. I mean, that was, to me, straight malpractice. Nobody should be giving somebody subs and ketamine and saying, take this home and be well. It's a substance. It changes the way you feel. And if you have the spiritual malady like I have, and, your doctor or loved one says, oh, it's okay to take this, what I'm going to do is say, well, I'm going to take double that.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
That's what I
If
did.
it's prescribed and okay, then I can go above and beyond and do more. Right.
Oh, for sure. Because it's not nobody's there administering it to you. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you gave me a 60, 30 milligram Suboxone for a month. Like, okay, cool. Like, how about I take 2 of them? Oh, that makes me high.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Right.
Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
same with alcohol. Like if you can't go out and just have 2 drinks and commit to, hey, I'm just having a drink or I'm just having 2 drinks, that's alcoholism, right? If you can't do what you say you're going to do, that's an addiction, right? And that could be sugar, that could be pornography, that could be working too late, that could be drug abuse, right? That is truly what addiction is. Final thoughts, David.
Final thoughts. Once you get into recovery, since you mentioned other addictions, it's really interesting that when you stop your one substance, that you tend to be susceptible to gambling, to pornography, to other process addictions. So if you get clean, I really encourage people to be part of a program, be either engaged in therapy or 12 steps, have a support system to be able to help you be aware. Because as we push down here, unfortunately, other things pop up. And it's a cunning, baffling, and powerful disease.
That's why I'm buying so many baseball and football cards right now, Jeff. That's my new addiction, right? It's not as bad as the other ones have been, but whatnot is my new addiction.
Yeah, this guy's buying sports cards like it's going out of style. But listen, Dave, thanks for coming on, bro. I love you. I mean, you changed my life. Solutions Recovery. I mean, you built one of the biggest recovery in I mean, all of the U.S. Right? I mean, like that was mega.
We're a big center and help lots of people get clean. Little Vegas stronger now. We've helped over 2,000 people. We just crossed 65 clinicians that are on board. So we're growing. We're helping a lot of people. I'm grateful I get to be of service. I'm honored to have been on your podcast. Thank you both, gentlemen.
How can our listeners help Vegas stronger?
My favorite thing is go check out vegasstronger.org. Love when people go to the website. We're on all the social platforms. If you feel compelled, we are a 501c3 nonprofit and could support us in any way. We appreciate any help we could get. But, mostly, post, share, help get the word out.
Amen, yeah. Brother. Yeah, for sure. And listen, if you're thinking about recovery, multiple people have contacted me. Hey, this is what I need, and I've made one phone call to Dave, and Dave's put them into a position where they're still sober today. Like I was same day, I had a family member that was struggling with opioids and fentanyl and alcohol, and I made one phone call, and we were in his office with a clinician doing I think you did I don't know what you call it, but they did the psychiatric type thing, and it was automatically to the sober place, and we were on and rolling same day. So I mean, if you're thinking about that, like this is why we do this. I tell everybody on this podcast, like we don't do this podcast because we're trying to get famous. We do this because this fills our cup up. So we have the resources. If you're thinking about, getting sober, talking about anything, I would much rather go take a phone call from you at 3:00 in the morning than have to go to your funeral. We are always available. Both me and Chad put our personal mobile phones in the chat. So like we are always available. You need somebody to talk to you. You need a hug. We got you.
So if you need an intervention, right, or need resources for it, go to vegasstronger.org, right? If you want to help us and empower people like David, go to vegasstronger.org and we'll post it below and donate because our charities need this the most. We all think our government stepping in and helping out this epidemic. They're not, right? It's people like David. And there's no better person to help these people than the people that used to be them. And that's David. That's Jeff. That's me. That's why we do this. So if you know someone struggling, please don't be shy like my friend did today and reach out to us. We're here to help. We'll connect them with David. We got our friend Brock. We have Jeff. We have Kaylee. We have just amazing people that have been on this show that are willing to help. We have resources. And most importantly, we have the heart, the desire, and the want to help these people and to help you help them.
Well said, brother.
Anything else, David?
No, just God bless you both. I appreciate you spreading this message of hope to hopefully the world.
Yeah,
And
thanks
that's
for
what
coming
it's
on, man.
about. That is what it's about. It is truly hope. You know it. There's a better life on the other side of this. You just sometimes have to go get the help and the fellowship and the people that have been through it. And I promise you, life is beautiful on the other side. You're proof of that, David. Drago's proof of that. I'm proof of that. And brother, we just we love you. We thank you for all that you do, not just for the Vegas community, but our whole country. And thank you for pouring into our listeners today. You changed a lot of lives.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.